Are you tired of all the baloney? Well, you know what you need. Straight talk with Jack Graham. So make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. Now, here is Jack Graham.
CTI. Anyone who was around listening to jazz in the late 60s, 70s, 80s, I think you all know the label CTI. Stands for Creed Taylor International. And, you know, what a great label. And we're going to talk about a few of my favorite records on CTI. Ones that the musicians get to stretch out a little bit more on than they did on some of the CTI records. Thank you for being here, and thank you for taking some time to listen to this video. I hope you enjoy it. Any comments, please leave them below. And let's get on to CTI. So CTI was formed as a subsidiary of A&M Records in 1967 by Creed Taylor, and took it private, and not having the ownership sharing of A&M in 1970. There were some records recorded back prior to that with A&M, basically a few by Wes Montgomery and some other people. But you could see Creed Taylor developing something here at A&M at CTI that carried on throughout the CTI life, and we'll go through that until its end in the late 80s. But at any rate, CTI really set a tone for some of the music that's being played today, and I'll explain to you what I mean by that when we get into that period. So Creed Taylor was very smart. He went to Rudy Van Gelder of Van Gelder Studios in New Jersey and recorded all his records at that studio in Englewood Cliffs, using Rudy Van Gelder and his location, which offered great sound and what I call the CTI sound. All their records had that. It just had to sound different than everybody else. Some say it was more commercial. I don't disagree with that. There was a lot of records. In fact, their biggest selling record was one record that I really don't enjoy at all. It's done by Emir Diodato, and that's the one that had Zarathustra on it, the disco version. But it sold. It was on Billboard. I think it was in the top 10, maybe in the top 5 for a couple of weeks. Sold a lot of records. But even at that, it didn't help the financial end of CTI, and it became an issue. In 1979, Creed Taylor formed a subsidiary called Kudu, Kudu Records. And on there, they had folks like Grover Washington. Trying to remember who else is on there. I don't know. The smooth jazz folks of today. Of course, Grover's no longer with us, but he did a record called Mr. Magic, if you probably remember that. And I think that was what I was referring to before, was the precursor for what we call today smooth jazz. I have little use for smooth jazz. I'll just leave it at that. If you like it, it's okay. God bless you. It's not one of my favorite types of music, but CTI was the creator of smooth jazz, the CTI sound. There's no doubt in my mind that Grover Washington and CTI, Kudu, whatever you want to look at, was where we get this smooth jazz stuff from today. So, they ran into some, CTI and Creed Taylor ran into some financial issues, so they went to Motown Records, of all people, to help distribute their product. And that happened in mid-70s, 73, 74. And I think led to the bankruptcy filing in 1978 that CTI went through. And they sold a lot of records, but they just had issues with financial issues. Let's leave it at that. But, they started using some more popular people like Nina Simone. I think they brought in Jim Hall again and Art Farmer. Made some pretty nice records. But they ran into some major financial situations. So, they also got King Records in Japan involved to do the distribution in Japan, and they sold a lot of records in Japan. I think I even have one or two Japanese pressings by King. But Sony became involved with them in 1976 through 79, and to the point that even when they got into their 9000 series, which started in 1980, even the label changed to a more corporate type label that I talked about 2 or 3 videos ago, when I was talking about the Paul Desmond, Pure Desmond record. It's a great record. If you go back and check that out, you'll see that label there. But just to run through the chronological situation on the numbers, for those of you who want some insight on the CTI numbering system. Their 6000 series went from 1970 to 1976. They had a lot of great records made, and we're going to see some of them. They did have a 5000 series in 1975 with Patty Austin, I think Lala Schifrin, more popular stuff in the 5000 series prior to that in 1975. But in the 7000 series is when Motown got involved, or after Motown was done with them, rather. Bob James was popular. George Benson was on some of those 7000s. Of course, Jim Hall, Art Farmer. Some good records in there as well. That was after the Motown situation. CBS got involved then. And then the 8000 series was reissues of the Kudu, Grover Washington stuff, some George Benson in there, the more soul and what came to be called smooth jazz predominantly. You'll hear on some of the CTI 8000 series. They did have a 9000 series that started in 1980. I talked about that again 2 videos ago. And that was distributed by CBS/Sony in 1981. And again, George Benson's in there, Art Farmer, other people. Still good sounding records though. There's been a couple people do some reissues. We're going to see a couple here done by Pure Pleasure, a UK company, really remastered and really, I think, improved. We'll talk about that when we're talking records. But the people that recorded for CTI, they had their own stable of people. They had Ron Carter, of course, Diodato, who made them a lot of money, Freddie Hubbard, Hubert Laws, Airto, Mariana on percussion, Stanley Turrentine. God, I used Steve Gadd on drums a lot, great drummer. Harvey Mason did some arranging, and of course Don Sebesky did tons of arranging for both the Kudu stuff with Grover Washington and CTI. When you hear all these string arrangements that they did with First Light and a couple other records, they're all Sebesky. Sebesky did tons of arranging for CTI and really brought them, I think, brought the CTI sound out that we all know. Interesting, David Matthews was involved in doing arranging for some of these jazz-oriented records and was quite a good arranger. And again, you know that the Diodato thing made them a lot of money. And then, of course, the Grover Washington, Mr. Magic, made them a lot of money and went on to be smooth jazz. All the records had great covers. And, you know, being in the photography business myself, the last 20, 30 years, really appreciated these covers when they came out. They're all done by a great photographer called Pete Turner. And it really branded CTI by having these great photographs laminated on shiny gatefold jackets, just really well packaged, and just a nice overall way to sell records. And maybe that was the problem with the financial end of them. I don't know, but Creed didn't cut too many corners. I think they made money. I don't know where it all went. But be that as it may, we still are left with a lot of great music. I'm going to just talk about 8 records here that are my favorites. I've got a lot. Over the next couple of videos, maybe I'll drag some more out. But let's just start with a couple. On A&M Records, back in May of 1968, is Road Song, Wes Montgomery. A lot of people, Pat Metheny says Wes Montgomery never made a bad record. Some people say this is not Wes Montgomery's greatest playing, it's commercial. Listen to this stuff. It's not Smoking at the Half Note, okay? It's not the Seattle recordings. It's not the stuff, you know, the session recordings, the club recordings. It's studio work. Yes, Wes did these. He made more money on these than the other things. Wes had a family. Wes worked a side job when he was making those great records back in the 60s. He needed to make some money. But these records are tremendous. It's a tremendous record. Road Song. Look at the presentation on here. Just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And you can see this has the A&M banner on the label. But this was the precursor to CTI, arranged by Don Sebesky with the CTI logo on the front cover right down here. Road Song. If you don't have this, get a good copy of this. They're around, and they're not probably very expensive. One record that's really hard to find, you can find them. They're getting very pricey. Probably, I don't know if this has ever been reissued. But this is Red Clay, the Freddie Hubbard record. Man, I'll tell you what. I think this is the best of the Freddie Hubbard records on here. Straight Life is more of a funky soul, funky record. Good record. But, man, I'll tell you, when you hear the Intrepid Fox on this, and you hear Joe Henderson play on this, and you hear Ron Carter, Lenny White on drums, just as a driving force. This is a tremendous record. And Freddie probably plays about 3 or 4 choruses on this. On this record, there's only 4 cuts. And CTI, Creed Taylor, they let the cats play on this record. And this, along with, we'll get to another one here in a minute, but man, I tell you what, this is probably my number 1 or 2 favorite CTI record of all time. Red Clay. They're hard to find. I'm not sure there's even one on Discogs right now. And if you can find them, if you can find one in good condition, you're probably going to pay $50 to $100. I don't know if they've ever been reissued. Somebody, please. I know that Sony's got the tapes. Somebody's got the tapes. Do this, please. It's a great record. Red Clay. Freddie Hubbard, CTI. Another great record that's really a very interesting record. It's for CTI. It's pretty outside. In today's market, it's not that outside, but when it came out, it really was. And this is Joe Farrell, the Joe Farrell Quartet from 1970 with Chick Corea, Jack DeJohnette, Dave Holland, and John McLaughlin on guitar. And again, they only do about 5 tunes on this. Actually, they do about 6 tunes on here. Joe plays tenor, flute, alto, and oboe on here. And it's a really great record, great sounding record. Joe Farrell Quartet on CTI from July of 1970 when it was recorded. CTI 6003. Here's a record that was done in July of 71. Yeah, 71, because it was right before First Light that we'll get to next. And it's Stanley Turrentine, who was a mainstay on CTI, did a number of good records on CTI. Great player, but really his big fat soul sound is on here. Now these arrangements again are by Sebesky. There's a string section on here, and it was recorded in Van Gelder studio. Let's see, there are 6 violins, a viola, 2 cellos, some voices on here. You got Harless Parlin on piano, Diodato, Richard T., Billy Cobham, Ron Carter, and Stanley Turrentine. Salt Song. Great Pete Turner cover. If you open this up, this is how they branded CTI. And this one is the... I have to get a better copy of this. It sounds okay, but I want to get a better copy. This is the Motown distributed copy. And you see the little number 2 for side 2 up there? That's kind of how you could tell it was a Motown distributed and later pressed copy. So I need to get a better copy of Salt Song. It's a great recording with the strings. And Stanley Turrentine, just a big fat sound and recorded. I mean, it's for the day. It was. These are some of the best sounding records you can buy. Right up there with Red Clay is Sunflower, the Freddie Hubbard tune, on the Milt Jackson record on CTI 6024. This is the Pure Pleasure version. It's a little darker orange. The original's a bright yellow. But this sounds incredibly good. I mean, it's much better than the original, which at the time was smoking good. Recorded in 1972. And on here's Milt Jackson, Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, the typical CTI mainstays, Freddie Hubbard, Phil Bodner, studio player in New York. Actually worked with Phil a little bit. On flute is on here, good player. And then again, the violins, same violins are on here, same cellos. There's a harpist on here, recorded at Van Gelder in 1972. And again, a beautiful Pete Turner photograph called Little Sunflower. This is another record like Red Clay where they let the cats play. They let them play. They let them play a number of choruses on here. Great tunes. What do you do the rest of your life? Beautiful ballad. Here's Freddie play on that. It's unbelievable. And then, of course, the title tune, Sunflower, written by Freddie, recorded a number of times. This is right up there at Red Clay, close to being my number 1 favorite. If I had to pick one or the other, it'd be really hard. Get this if you don't have it. You'll hear them play. First Light. Just put this on some night, turn the lights off, sit back and listen to the sound on this. This again is the Pure Pleasure reissue. Much better than the already really good original CTI. Done in 1971, right after the Salt Song recorded, a couple months. I recorded this. This was done later in the year. I think it's September. But man, what a great record. Freddie Hubbard's just beautiful flugelhorn. Just a drop dead gorgeous record. Man, it's just amazing. I actually think this was came out right before Sunflower. I may have it backwards. Another great record by the great Ron Carter, All Blues. This was done later in 1973, and with Roland Hanna the pianist in the Millou's Thad Jones Big Band. Richard T., one at the time the most in-demand studio bass player. If you look at the old Letterman shows, he played on a lot of those. And the great Billy Cobham on drums. How do you miss with that? Roland Hanna, Richard T., Billy Cobham, and Ron Carter, along with the great Joe Henderson on tenor. And they play on this. They let them play a few choruses. All blues, great record. This you could find very reasonable. A different record that I really enjoy is Concierto, the Jim Hall record. This was done in 1975. This is a later CTI. And it is in the 6000 series that I talked about before. It was at the kind of almost at the end of the 6000 series. Beautifully recorded with Paul Desmond, Chet Baker, Ron Carter, Steve Gadd, Roland Hanna. Kind of the same group as the Chet Baker, She Was Too Good to Me recording with the addition of Roland Hanna. But Jim Hall is a great player. A great record. This is one of my favorite records. There's a number of really great tunes on here. Sebesky did the arrangements, of course. And the cool photograph, again, really great sketch of Jim Hall in there. And side two's got only one record, the famous Rodrigo Concierto di Arnaz, and you'll recognize that when you hear it. And then the first side is three cuts, but they get to play a little bit, especially on the first and the third, which goes about 8 minutes each. You'd be so nice to come home to the great Cole Porter tune. And then the answer is yes, which is a Jim Hall original. But please check that out. All of these are just great CTI records. I have some more that I really like, but Red Clay and Sunflower, they may be 1 and 2 and of my favorites. The classical record of the video, for those of you who are maybe new to classical music, want to investigate it, the best way to do it is to join us on Wednesday nights when we convene on YouTube. I'll put the link below. Everything Classical Music. We show records. We have guests. It's led by Anthony Kershaw and Scott Wilson of Audiophilia. And you'll learn a lot if you really are new, or you're not new. You'll probably have a lot to add to it. And we always look for that. It's an honor to be kind of on the panel with those guys. So if you check it out, you'll enjoy it. But one record I'd really recommend picking up, one piece of music, is the Peer Gynt Suite by Edvard Grieg. Recorded a lot of different ways. Some people don't record the entire suite. This is the piece of music that when you hear the Hall of the Mountain King, you'll say, oh, I heard that somewhere. Very popular. But there's there's actually 10 different parts of this. Some records only have, I think, 5. But this recording by Fieldstadt and the London Symphony is on the London Treasury label, kind of a budget label, but great sounding records. Is a really great recording. If you can stream this, I don't know if it's on Cubose or Tidal, it may be, but if you can find this on Discogs, if you want to introduce yourself to this piece of music, this has the entire incidental music. It was done for a play, and it's just beautiful music. But this is the entire 10 parts of the suite. And unfortunately, some records don't have the complete suite, and they're doing themselves this injustice because it's a beautiful piece of music. Great recording. Peer Gynt. It's a warhorse in classical music, but a beautiful piece of music. that will do it for this video. CTI. Amazing label with an interesting history. I hope that someone other than Pure Pleasure has done a great job, but these tapes are around. Chad Kasem or whoever. I'd love to hear a UHQR Red Clay. Can you imagine that? Whew. Anyhow, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, the whole bit. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.